Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of 3 Minute Marketing. I'm your man, Chris Mechanic here, longtime performance marketer, growth geek. 3 Minute Marketing is basically micro TED Talks from prominent, well-known, industry-leading growth marketers. Today, I'm super excited to have Patrick Edmonds on the show. Patrick is CMO at Proposify, which is a proposal writing software that really zooms in and focuses on the close. Has a lot of really interesting features, cool brand. I really like the site. I can see you guys have a good mix of like SEO and UX, it's a skillful site. But we're excited to see Patrick prior to Proposify basically got a PhD in media buying at an agency, everything from programmatic to search and video and mobile. So you're exactly the type of kind of unicorn that we like having on the show. And it's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's get right into it. This is called 3 Minute Marketing. So we want to keep it quick and we want to keep it high impact. The topic, the thing about Patrick is that he's a CMO that works at a sales-driven company. And a lot of the best marketers, the best growth marketers are kind of salespeople in their own right. Like copywriters are kind of salespeople in their own right. But a lot of them, the fastest growing marketers are hip to hip with the sales team, and you kind of have that DNA. So the question that I've got for you today is basically, how can marketers help sales teams close more deals? It doesn't have to be all about leads for marketers. Like, how can marketers actually contribute to deals? Is the question.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity of talking about this. It's something I'm really passionate about because, marketing is not just leads. Marketing needs to be a little bit more than that. I think there has been this divide between marketing and sales. It's been for a long time. People sort of say that, but I see it actually going away. I see it being much more positive in terms of that relationship. And I think the evolution of the demand gen function within marketing and or sales is really starting to elevate this. And performance marketers, demand marketers, growth marketers, whatever you want to call this, it is much more about how much traffic and how many leads you bring through the door. It matters how many of those get into your sales team's hands, how many of those close, how many of them are retained as customers, how many of them expand in revenue down the road. That's what really matters in terms of revenue. So what I wanted to do here is just 3 quick tips that you are actionable that you can take away. There's lots of articles on this about aligning your sales and marketing team, but these are just 3, I think, very quick actionable things that your marketing team can do to help your sales tomorrow if you put this in place. The first one is cover fire. This idea of, if you're choosing to pay for ad spend, make sure you're spending it on the right people. So if you're doing any type of retargeting or prospecting, make sure you're using like custom audiences and things on like LinkedIn, where are the people that are in your sales team's hand right now. Make sure you're advertising to those people and not someone like much higher at the funnel for you. Make sure they are as close to bottom of funnel in your sales team's hands as possible. So that's number 1. Second one is templatized branded sales documents for your sales team. They do not have time to be creating their own content and their own assets. They should be on the phone talking to customers every single day. And if you're a marketer that wants to help them, you want to make sure that when your salesperson gets off the call, they're able to send them that deck, that proposal, that quote, that contract, that one page or whatever it is. They should be able to have a branded, awesome sales document as soon as they get off the call, or ideally as they're on the call. So as a marketing team, templatize those out so your sales team can replace a couple of different things easily. Ideally pulling information from your CRM in there and get that out as fast as they can. And the third one, this is becoming much more popular, and I'm glad it is marketers should be talking to customers. They should be understanding who they are. And one of the best ways to do that, is jump on the sales calls with your sales team. Be there in person with them. And if you can't do that, there's tools like Gong or Chorus or other call recording software. And you can listen to them back. You can listen to them on 2x speed. You can get a special playlist. You'll understand the exact words that your prospects are using. Steal their language and put it in your marketing copy. Put in your ads, your emails, your headlines, your landing pages. You don't have to write another word as a marketer. Use your customer's language from the sales calls. And that's what I've got.
Brilliant. I absolutely love that. Absolutely love it. So quick summary, marketers out there, help your teams close some deals by having templatized, good-looking documents, ideally that contain the customer voice, right? But get in and listen to those calls. I'm always saying, listen to those calls. It's like a treasure trove of user voice data right within our Gong or within our call tracking, and then cover fire. I think it's brilliant. It's like, look, you have a set of target accounts. I mean, it's called ABM for fancy, but for non-fancy, it's called good old-fashioned selling. You're already calling on prospects, get ads in front of them on LinkedIn or whatever that custom audience is. Cover fire. I like that. I'm going to use that. Thank you, Patrick. Patrick may have to go, but there may be some bonus material somewhere around, either up, down, left, or right. There's probably a link or a video with more if Patrick can stay. One way or the other, Patrick, we really appreciate this. This was awesome. Tell the people how they can find out more about you and or Proposify.
Yeah, absolutely. Check us out, proposify.com. We have a free version of our product. You can put in no credit card, get trying to templatize those documents for your sales team as fast as you can. Give it a try. And if you want to kick with me, I'm just Patrick Edmonds on LinkedIn. Should be pretty easy to find.
I might actually check out Proposify. We're PandaDoc right now, but I haven't really been feeling it. So
well, there you go. No risk. Try it out for free.
Nice. Okay, cool. Well, hey, thank you very much, Patrick. Stick around if you can. If not, I understand. Have a good one. So on this idea, I'm a really good copywriter myself, right? And we have copywriters here internally, and they do well. A lot of our clients are B2B SaaS or they're niche-y. It's hard to understand their business. Like you guys are B2B SaaS, but it's in a more straightforward space. Like if you have to say like an HR compliance SaaS, it's like a different world. So it's hard for a copywriter to get in there. One thing that we have literally done is gotten the sales team involved. Like we'll get the sales team involved to look at our ads and our copy, So like it's almost a shortcut to do a similar thing. A lot of salespeople, like they're not good copywriting. Like they don't know anything about copywriting, but they can write some freaking copy because like what they're saying is basically copy. What they say on the phone is basically copy.
Yeah. Oh, but call script and copy, there's no difference. And who writes it first, I think is the interesting part here. And I've had this sort of go either way. It's like, does sales want marketing to write their call scripts and their copy for them so that they can say it, or vice versa? Sales comes up with an idea that they know that works, brings it to marketing and say, hey, can you make this better? I think there's different approaches I've seen taken.
Well, I think what I'm arguing is I think that the second approach would work better. Yeah. Maybe the marketing team kind of tweaks it a little, maybe adjust the syntax of what's said a little bit, but the essence of the sales message, because nobody knows the customers like the salespeople. Yeah. Or the accounts people.
Customer success, sales, definitely more customer interaction than the marketers or the product people in some cases.
Yeah. So do you guys do that at Proposify? Like, do you have salespeople literally like looking at stuff? Or
Oh yeah. Yeah, this is actually happening right now. That was my recommendation. And that's why I brought it up, was that sometimes our sales team has asked, hey, can you do this for me? Can you put together a deck with a sales narrative from scratch? But where our marketers and copywriters struggled is like they aren't used to the process of speaking to it, where it's the one-to-many versus the one-to-one sort of a relationship. Marketing is the one-to-many, sales is the one-to-one. And what we've started flipping that around is doing the exact same thing. It's like, salesperson, give it the best shot you can. Say, like, you've done this a billion times, like give us your best sort of idea and best summary, and then let like the marketing team act as just editors, as like the editor of a magazine or the editor of like the editor in chief of something, just to say like, okay, I think could have polished this up a little bit better, or this language is a little bit clunky. Take this and just polish it up a little bit.
Or it's like, this word isn't exactly on brand. Like if they use a word like mercenary or something.
Yes.
Closing mercenary. Not that they would, but
exactly. Yeah. Make sure it aligns with the strategic positioning of the company, because ideally your marketing team is very aligned with how you're positioning yourself against your competitors, how you're positioning yourself in the market. And you need those things to come across because of the research, ideally, that the marketing team has done in terms of what the rest of the market is saying versus what you are saying. And you need to position against that. So if your team is trying to sell the same thing that your competitor is selling, let's just say it's speed. It's a very common thing for lots of different technologies to say, we're faster than somebody else. Yeah. Well, if everybody's saying that they're fast, no one's fast anymore. Yeah. And so if your sales rep brings that sort of thing up, it's like, yeah, we are fast and you can say we're fast, but everyone else is going to say that they're fast too. So maybe we lean into this quality aspect of our product a little bit heavier because no one else is saying that.
Yeah. So it's an interesting time that I'm speaking with you. We're redoing a lot of our collateral and our decks and things right now. And so I've been thinking a lot about it. I'm really curious to see your guys, because I imagine that your guys is really good. But I came across something just yesterday that I want to share with you and with anybody that's still listening, because it was very much impactful for me. And I want to see if you guys like if you've seen this, or if can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can.
Or if you like follow this, but
Andy Raskin, I think I have seen this one actually.
I thought it was really slick, and it's applicable like crazy for us and probably for you. But like, just to give you the TLDR is we are totally guilty of this. Like, the first thing in our deck is, hi, we're web mechanics, a performance agency, hardcore data analytics, whatever. So we totally lead with me right now, but we're not going to. Instead, name the big relevant change in the world. Like, how good is that? Name the undeniable shift that's high stakes and high urgency. And for you, I'm sure you probably already have that in your mind, right? Show that there will be winners and losers. I haven't read this verbatim. I just read the headlines and I'm already hooked. Tease the promised land, right? Start introducing yourself as kind of, the magic overcoming, and present evidence that you can make it come true, right? So we have all of these things, but in a very different syntax, very different order. Like, where we basically start with, our magic gifts, and then we do a case study, and then so we do it exactly backwards. And I'm super excited to see, and we're like not doing bad, and we were still winning deals, but I'm super excited to try this and see.
Flip it around.
But do you guys do that, or
we do something similar to that? And we actually took it it looks very similar to this framework, but it started out for us as a webinar sort of framework, where if you're doing like just a live webinar on a topic, and ultimately it's a webinar disguise. It's a Trojan horse, and you're trying to get people on, and ultimately, you want to sell them at the end of this sort of thing. But it comes off as very disingenuous if you're just like, we're here and we do this, and here's maybe something valuable. But you can do exactly that thing. Talk about the change in the world, hammer on problems that anyone can solve. And I think the best part of it is about this other strategy is you can say it can be solved in a number of different ways. You're acknowledging that there are ways to do this without getting a service or a partner or a software or something. But if you need to do it with this difference and this difference and this difference, we're the only ones that can do that, or we're the ones that can do it for you the best. And if you need it to happen fast, or if this is a piece that is very important to you in terms of quality, then this is why the ad hoc free version of this won't actually end up working. So you sell them on this pain that can be solved any way possible, but you put there's a little thing in there that says like, you can go and do this, but there's going to be these pain points that are going to add on top of that. And if you don't want to have those pain points and make it easy, we can remove all of the friction for you, and we can do it for you. We can help you, all of this sort of stuff. So you don't actually sell them on you until the end, but you've been selling them on the problem and the pain the whole time.
I like that. Yeah, I could totally take a page out of that book, because I'm like a marketer myself. So I tend to get into the details quickly. Like, my selling style, I think, is sort of an educational one, but I don't want to harp on the pain that much, because like it feels salesy kind of, but like I know that I should. Anyway, whatever. Enough about me. But hey, if you're still listening right now, I'm not in any way connected with Proposify. We're not getting any back end or anything, but I am curious on the topic of templatized documents.
Yeah.
So the way that we have it, like we have, some case studies templatized, we have a pitch deck templatized, we have scopes of work templatized. They're basically documents in, Google Drive, and somebody will find it, file, make a copy, change all the things that need to be changed and get it out. It doesn't take a very long time, but it doesn't take more than 2 hours, but it probably will take more than 30 minutes in most cases, or at least 30 minutes in most cases, just to read through it all and make sure it's all good. So with Proposify is it essentially similar, or is there like a better and faster way to do it that takes less than 30 minutes?
Yeah, it's a great question. There is, I think you're already doing some of the best practices, and actually I'll be very transparent. Those are some of the things that we recommend to people to solve their own problems in that sort of webinar format, to say like, yeah, you can use Google Docs and you can put these templates together. Make sure you have the master version that you're copying from. You're not copying the last proposal that you sent and you accidentally leave the last customer's name in it or the wrong information, those sorts of things. So make sure you have that master document, and ultimately make sure that you have them for either different services, different verticals that you're going after. Let's say you sell into a couple of different verticals or industries. You have like a version for each of them. You know where to start from. And there's another kind of version that we recommend, is the kind of like the Frankenstein master template that has everything that you could ever offer or sell from a product or service perspective. And then you take out what you don't need, as opposed to adding stuff in and having to type it and copy it from somewhere else and put it in. It's like, no, deleting is way faster than creating. Right. So you have this master template with everything in there. I think the really key thing that speeds up with Proposify is the variables and content library of like little tweaks and changes, so that you don't have to actually type in anything. You can pull in your customer information from your CRM. So it's like one click and there's no find and replace. It just populates like snippets, just like in a email marketing software where it's like hello first name. You've got all of these sort of variables in there. And that can speed up that sort of time. And I was kind of talking about earlier, that ability of a sales rep to get that document either on the call or right after the call. Like the most embarrassing thing is to say, I'll get that to you tomorrow, or worst case scenario, I'll get that to you by the end of the week, because your competitor could get in there in the middle, or they'll be distracted, especially if you had a really good sales call. It's like you've done most of the selling in the call as a human person, one-to-one. You've done that sort of thing. You want to remove as much time for something to go wrong as possible. Their budget could get pulled tomorrow. Like something could go, they could go on vacation. Like things can happen in between that time. Like time to sales, like the speed does make a difference. And we actually have a lot of data to show that from our platform that shows the faster you can get a document over to your prospect, the higher likely it is to close. So that's one part of just like the speed aspect of getting it through. And we have customers that are exactly like you. It takes them a couple hours to do it, and they can get it down to minutes. There are others that it takes them days to do, and at least gets them down to hours. So it really depends on the complexity of your product or service and how much goes into your document. The best fit are those people that there's a little bit of customization that needs to happen, but a lot of the stuff you are reusing from a template perspective.
Yeah, there's other really cool features that I saw just on your site, such as like, hey, when I create a new proposal, create a deal and mark it as this stage. And then like, hey, when I win a proposal, mark it closed won for me.
Oh yeah. So it integrates
automations in there.
It automates directly with your CRM. So yeah, it'll update those stages for you. Less manual work for the sales rep. That's like definitely an admin benefit for the sales rep themselves. And the one piece that we haven't sort of talked on yet that arguably is more for the sales rep themselves than the marketer, but is the data and analytics you get back from these documents, knowing when they opened it, how long they looked at it, what sections they were looking at it. Like marketers are used to looking at our Google Analytics and like how long people were looking at our bounce rate of our pages,
the
and
heat map of our
heat map, everything. This is a kind of that same idea, but for your sales rep and your individual documents, and you can see who did it, one person in particular, and that can give you a lot of insight into your deal that you wouldn't know otherwise. A deal that went cold, you thought went cold, they opened it again a few days later. That's the perfect time to pick up the phone and talk to them. Or if they didn't read half the proposal, most times they're jumping right to your like investment pricing cost page, whatever that is. Or if they're spending a whole bunch of time reading through your terms and conditions, and there's like a legal person on their team that's stuck on something that you could be working through with them, but they're not reaching out to you. That sort of information, you're not going to get it if you send a Google Doc or a PDF or a Word document, because you're just going to cross your fingers saying, hope they liked it, and wait for them to call you back. But this puts you a little bit more in the driver's seat.
Yeah, I'm doing something right now, which may be useful to you. Actually, this is the first time I've ever done it, but I had a really good series of calls with a prospect. Like we really got to know each other. We were being genuine and authentic. So normally I'm the PDF guy, or we would use PandaDoc, which has like some basic analytics. Doesn't sound like as deep as what you're talking about. But yeah, say I'm the PDF guy. But with this individual one, I got the thought, hey, they're going to have questions about specific things, right? Instead of making them send me an email to describe, hey, I'm talking about with a lot of words. What if I just share the Google Doc and give them commenting permissions and just let them comment on those things right there?
Yeah.
So there's like 3 of them on their team. So different people can leave different comments. We can just go in. I just thought that seemed like an easy way to do it, but I don't know if there's a feature like that. I'll let you know whether it works or not. It might not work.
Yeah, I'd love to hear. We have a kind of a version that we do have comments directly on the documents. So on each page, you can comment that way. And something that I don't feel is utilized enough, because you need to integrate with another tool for this, but we do have the ability to integrate with Intercom or Drift or one of those sort of chat tools on the proposal. So you could have them and you could be live chatting with them as they're reviewing your proposal, as long as you have that tool in your tech stack that you could leverage. But even if you don't, you could leverage this sort of comment feature and ask people to like leave the feedback right on the document, so that you can have that collaborative selling approach that you don't have to go back and forth on emails. And one thing I love about it too is that you could just change. It would work with the Google Doc recommendation you're making there too, is you can just change the document live before it gets signed. You don't need to wait for me to go back to my team to export a new PDF and send you a new version. And then which version are you looking at again? You're always looking at the most up-to-date version, and you can refresh the page and voila, the changes there. You don't have to worry about that sort of delay of making changes on documents.
Yep. So I'm sensitive to your time. I have like 6 other questions for you, but I'll leave it at just a couple. And I'm thinking now in terms of like what'll be most useful potentially for our listeners. One thing I noticed, you're young, man. Based on your college graduation years, I don't know how old you actually
it's a pretty good estimate, yeah.
But you're probably the youngest guest I've ever had on the show, I would say. And it looks like you went from sort of the small agency, kind of got this master's degree, and then you went to presumably this funded startup and were probably one of the earlier employees. But I noticed you just went from growth marketer to CMO, which like you don't see often. Usually there's like a director to VP to. How'd you do that? Like, what's your secret? How'd you get so quick? How'd you get?
I'm happy to be very transparent about this. So yeah, I worked in an agency for about 4 years, media buying. Like it was the perfect time with like Facebook advertising kind of blowing up around that sort of time, and kind of modern Google AdWords and paid advertising and analytics that goes along with that. It was a good time to spend other people's money and learn how the technology actually worked, because it was an agency and people would let us kind of spend their budgets on their behalf. And that was really exciting to learn. And then I realized that I wanted to take that a little bit further and to go deeper than just the ad side and look into the analytics and the SEO and the CRO and other parts of that sort of business. So growth made a lot of sense there. So joined a company, wasn't funded at the time, pretty much bootstrapped organization. I think it was employee number 10 or 12 when I started Proposify, and like two marketers and like 10 people. Like it was and seen it kind of grow. Now we're 100 plus people. And perfectly transparent, I got the CMO title way before I actually deserved that title, because it was a small organization. Our CEO was and he's told me this, we've had conversations about it. He was throwing around titles like they were nobody's business to like the people that he trusted that helped grow the company to where it had gotten to at that stage within a few years of its life. And then I probably took me 3 or 4 years to actually grow into what I feel is more a legitimate use of that title. So arguably back then when I got it at first, I would have been maybe like a head of marketing or VP, like director or something along those lines. And as the team has grown and the company has grown, and the years sitting on with the executive team, and now working with new investors and board of directors, and going through many cycles of budgeting and evolving a tech stack and software and hiring and everything that goes in with that, much more fitting into the actual CMO title. So yeah, it's been a journey, but I'd say like I've been with the company 5.5 years. Every year looks different in terms of the role and the job.
Well, I mean, it's impressive that you maintain that title, because a lot of times what happens as companies grow, their needs change and the people in the seats change. So,
absolutely.
to be that at 10, whether you deserved it or not, and to still be that at 110, it's quite impressive, man.
Yeah, it's a funny story actually, and the CEO has told this one publicly too, so I'm fine to say, is when they were hiring for my growth role, they also interviewed people, San Francisco, big names in this sort of thing, and I think they were demanding salaries that were more than the company had made in the last 9 months or something.
Yeah.
And more than less, like it was astronomical. It's like, it was a part of the function too. It's like scrappy company, small company. We weren't the typical startup that just raised $10 million. It was, we need to grind, and there's a runway of cash, and we need to make this work with what we have, sort of bootstrapped mentality. And that's a little bit different than some other organizations where they do just go out and they get the CMO on day one that has all the experience and brought it there. That is a viable method for lots of companies with that sort of growth. But there is a different sort of strategy you can take too, where you try and invest in smart people. I've been lucky enough to, I think, have benefited from that, of being a younger, gritty, digging in sort of marketer, able to make that change as needed as the time, but you have to grow with it too. They didn't need me to keep doing that. They needed me to grow with the company as it evolved. Well,
that's brilliant, man. Well, I really appreciate that. Do you have a hard stop, or do you have another couple minutes?
I don't. I'm fine to keep going.
Cool. That is very cool. First off, I'd love to have you back. I mean, you're the exact type of person that I like to have, because, you're a mover, shaker, hustler, working hard. I bet you read a lot. I bet you're, probably up to date on the latest and greatest happening. So I'm curious about just what's happening in your mind space, what topics, marketing related, that you're most interested in. But also, would you, well, go ahead.
I was actually trying to think, like, what is the next biggest, greatest?
Well, I'll tell you, I'll go first if you want.
Go ahead.
So, we're big on algo training, algorithmic media buying, basically sending success signals back to the ad networks, Google, Facebook, beyond what you might typically. Like, typically you would send like the page view event, and then maybe the conversion, form submission or phone call happened or demo requested or whatever. But we get much more granular, and we get much more specific in terms of the values that we associate with those events, to the tune of, I was thinking with Proposify, it would be sick if you guys, well, you have to have a high velocity sales team with like many proposals going out.
Yeah.
Like, if you could somehow take prospect commented on proposal and deal did not close, like, that'd be a great retargeting list.
Yeah.
That you couldn't get from CRM,
Definitely.
And you could put that on just a long-term retargeting list and just pepper in different types of ads, over 120 days, and you could very well, win that or win that back.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're trying to do the same thing for ourselves right now, just like on a revenue level of using the APIs to pass through sort of revenue information. That's not just, here's the average deal value, because our deal values can go a different gamut depending on what kind of plans people choose and that sort of thing. It's not as simple as like e-commerce, where it's like you bought a pair of shoes, the shoes cost $100,
right?
Conversion of $100. It's recurring revenue. So then you have to think about like, okay, is this something that you put regularly? Do you put the 12-month ARR, annual recurring revenue, or the average contract value, that sort of thing? What's the number that you signal to train the algorithm for a recurring revenue business? Is
that a question for me?
Yeah, just a question for anybody, but if you can answer it.
So we'll typically do one of two things. Either, a lot of times the client already has a modeled CLTV that they use, but I think it would make sense to model a CLTV basically based on the value of that first transaction. So just call, like, you might, for simplicity, just say times 3. So whatever the first deal is times 3 is, a decent rule of thumb, I think, for most SaaS outfits. So that way, if a whale comes in and the initial deal is large, it, and vice versa. Yeah. But the other way to do it is just basically to take all of your deals and look at how many demos it took to get those deals and what the basically value of that demo is accordingly, and then bid basically on a demo complete. Not based on like, hey, they filled this form out and it's a demo complete, but like, hey, they were marked in CRM as like this call actually took place and it was complete.
Yeah.
That's probably how I would do it.
Like it.
But then on the very top of the funnel, there's useful stuff too. So if you're buying just cold traffic, you're going to have a high bounce rate. You're going to have 80, 90% bounce rate. And but some of those bouncers are zombies. It was like a fat thumb click, or just, immediately they pushed the back button, or they just idled out for 30 seconds and didn't do anything. But other of that 80 to 90% cohort is not zombies. They might have scrolled, they might have highlighted text, they might have selected a form field, they might have even started, putting keystrokes in. So I need to come up with a cooler word for it. But for right now, I'm calling it zombie scrubbers, where basically even before a conversion, if they do anything useful, depending on the landing page, that might be scroll depth or dwell time or some kind of, highlighting of text or form field activation, then assign them a very low value, regardless of whether they convert or not, just so that you can steer away from zombies.
Yeah, it's better that it's bounced, but good bounced, like bounced, consumed some piece of information and then bounced, not totally just didn't do anything whatsoever. And it's funny you're talking about that, because there's something that's come up with like how we load marketing scripts on the site in terms of like page speed for SEO. And we're talking about like, if we delayed script loads, like we would miss those zombie people, but do we care? Because no, like they're not the good ones anyway. Let's just say in theory, you just load all your scripts after like 1-2 seconds of your page loading, then you just automatically are chopping those people out. And the only people that are left are going to be people that did some sort of action. Now, all your metrics are going to drop off like crazy. If you're like sessions, your sessions are going to just tank. But it's the only people left over will have been people that actually did things, which are the people that matter at the end of the day. Yeah.
And sometimes if your stuff's not set up right, you gotta live through a metric tank every once in a while.
Yeah. The metrics are just metrics. They don't mean anything. They're not revenue. They're just things you can use to make a judgment call based on whether you're doing something right or not. Like ultimately what matters is something way further down the funnel. And these are leading indicators. So like, don't tie yourself to those sort of top level metrics. They're just tools.
Yeah. It's always a little, sometimes like we frequently will have to break hearts. Like people are like, look, I got a 7% conversion rate. And I'm like, double firing.
Yeah.
And people get sad sometimes. They're like, oh, really?
Yeah.
But hey, man, I could keep going. I do want to be sensitive to your time. I am curious, let's close up here real quick. So any final words, any departing
No,
advice,
you got me
wisdom?
with like what is the biggest thing kind of for marketers right now?
Or just on your mind.
Yeah, biggest thing on my mind. Well, it honestly is a little bit of the sales and market, the original topic that we sort of came towards. And it is the how do you make sure that your go-to-market function for your organization is aligned 100% and that your teams are doing things together and not disparately. And I had a conversation with our sales team the other day to close this out a little bit about that idea of like, if you could start over from scratch, what would everything look like? Because I think you bring a lot of this baggage with you with a company that's like, whatever, 8 years old. 8 years old is still young in terms of lots of other companies. But even so, if you could hit the reset button from like a technology perspective, from like a lead flow perspective, like what would you do? It's just a very freeing thing and experiment to do. And I think when you take that lens and you also scrape away titles and marketing and sales, and you just look at it as we have people that have a problem and we have a way of solving that problem. What is the best way to do that given the information that we have, and almost ignore some of the playbooks and the best-selling author books that you've read, because they might be for some other business. They might not be for your business. And I just like this idea of taking a fresh look at things. And that's how innovation really happens.
So what's like one thing that you would definitely rip out or do over if in that scenario?
Well, it's actually, I would love for someone to try and sell me this if it exists. Is I think there's just there has to be a better solution out there for marketing and sales automation to collaborate on email, because there are awesome newer tools coming out there for sales, for outbound, like Outreach, Sales Loft, and that sort of thing. And then there's the tried and true but shitty marketing automation tools like Marketo and Pardot and even HubSpot from that perspective, where I don't think I've met a single CMO that likes their marketing automation technology, and everyone wants to collaborate with sales more. So that's what I'm looking for. Somebody feel free to reach out to me if they're listening to this.
So basically like a hybrid one-to-one sales outreach and marketing automation
and marketing.
platform.
Yeah. So that it's your customer journey from start to finish, whether it's marketing messages, whether it's one-to-one sales, that it's a cohesive thing. And you can see that journey, and the relationship is not a, when did they get a marketing email and when did they get a sales email, that it's a kind of a cohesive effort, and that you're actually scraping away the marketing and sales titles 100%. You're just talking about what's the right journey for this person to revenue within your organization. And I say that selfishly as a hybrid sort of company where we have a sales touch model and a kind of self-service sort of model of free trial. So it's we kind of try to do both at the same time.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I will keep an eye out for that. And anybody listening, if you know of anything like that, let Patrick know.
Yeah.
And let me know too. Well, thank you very much, man. I'm going to let you go.
Thanks so much for having me. Right. Talk to you later.